So great, so that gives us a very interesting perspective. Now that we understand how an organization can become resilient, by not only working on its enablers and the structures, we also can look at the emerging technologies like AI and machine learning. The next question that comes to my mind is, what would be the impact on the customer experience? And then how does the customer see all these efforts that we do from a quality engineering perspective? And what do we need to do from a quality engineering perspective to enable the customer really experience it in the correct way? So to present his views on this particular aspect, we have Avinash Tiwari, who is the founder of Smart Testing Solutions and also the co-founder for Pcloudy. For those of you who do not know, Pcloudy has been an avid supporter of the STC and in propagating the message of the right practice for testing, especially on the mobile and cloud platforms. And Avinash is a great speaker and a practitioner, a very hands-on person. I've always enjoyed his conversations on the testing space. He is also an IIT BHU alumni and also an MIT grad in the EGP program. So now over to Avinash to present his views on how do we transform the function of testing to influence the customer experience. Over to you, Avinash. You're on mute. We can't hear you, Avinash. Yeah. Yes. Now you can.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely clearly. Yeah.
Okay, great. Great to see you, Pradeep, though virtually. And hope you can see my screen as well. Can you see the presentation as well?
Not yet. Gift, can you? No, we don't see the presentation yet. Just share screen at the bottom. Yeah.
Yes, I have already done that.
And enter the presentation mode. Yeah, that's what.
Can you see it now?
She's saying see them now. Okay, but I can't see the screen. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Now you just have to click on the presentation mode. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's great. That's great. So thanks, Pradeep, for the introduction, and good morning to everyone who is participating in the STC conference. We have a very special relationship with QAI and STC, and I'm extremely glad to be back on this stage. Though, as I think I heard the talk, and even I am missing the physical interaction for a conference like STC, where we used to meet so many thought leaders, and get to interact and hear stories and share our views in person. But I think we have also learned to get the most out of any situation that presents to us. So thanks, Pradeep and team, for organizing this virtually at a much bigger scale. And I'm sure that everyone is getting an enriched experience in this virtual conference as well. So we live in a completely new world. We are seeing everything virtual. This conference has been digitized um, and coming our way virtually, and it's happening all around us. And this new experience, or this new digitization and digitalization which is happening around us, has put the focus on consumer experience like never before. It has been an important aspect from quite some time, but no organization can think of postponing it uh, in the current situation that we are in. And so is the case for the testing community. We have spoken a lot about different kind of testings like functional, non-functional, but the focus on the consumer experience testing has to be at the forefront, when we are planning any strategy. So I'm going to share my view over next 25-30 minutes through some stories. Let's hope you enjoy the journey with me. But before we do that, a quick word about who we are, about us. Some of you might already be aware of, some of you who are not aware. So Pcloudy is a continuous testing platform which helps you increase the speed of your app testing. And we do it with a, a very strong layer of infrastructure where we have uh, device browser combinations available on cloud. More than 5,000 plus combinations are available. And on top of it, we have built layers of solutions which helps any organization become part of the continuous testing journey. And these solutions layer are like rapid automation. So you can create automation scripts very, very quickly within your sprints. You can execute the automation scripts at a scale which you can't do it in a physical kind of lab. So you can run on 50, 100 device combinations very easily with single clicks. We have solution layers like test analytics and DevOps. Uh, Again, with the view that you focus on your testing, and the platform enables continuous testing for you across the life cycle. We have been in this journey from last 5 years. We have more than 170K plus users from across the globe. 500 plus companies are relying on us for their daily testing needs, be it app and web. Uh, 20 plus Fortune 500 customers have trusted on us, and we have been covered by many analysts from Gartner, and we are one of the highest performing platform on independent review platforms like G2 Crowd. Some customer names to mention here. As you can see from the slide, we have customers from different industries, different sizes. We pretty much covered the complete breadth of the industry spectrum and the size spectrum of the customers. So without delaying further, there's no better way to start with um, Steve Jobs quoting what customer experience means. And you'll not find a better proponent of customer experience than Steve Jobs. We all know the products that he created. And one of the key way of his thinking was to put the customer experience first and work backward to create technology, not the other way around. I mean, you can go and see his interviews over YouTube. And in one of the talks, he clearly says that uh, it doesn't matter how good the tech is, you can't go and sell it to the customer until unless you know what customer experience it can provide to the end consumer. And that is one of the philosophy that he always followed as far as the customer experience was concerned, and any product design or product creation that he did. So I'm going to, as I mentioned, I'm going to share certain stories around customer experience. And to begin with, the first story that I want to share is completely from a non-tech world, a human story, which again is a great example of what customer experience means, and how within the testing community, how we can start thinking about customer experience. So to do so, we'll have to travel to Denmark, um, of course, virtually. I'm sure we all are yearning to travel and go places, but let's do a virtual tour of Denmark through this story. So, in Denmark, being a progressive society, one of the problem areas that they identified was the growing need of senior citizens uh, who were having uh, who were living in government assisted facilities, and they were alone. They were having problem with food. So government started a program of sponsored meals for those kind of senior citizens who were living in assisted facilities. And it was a big number for them. Close to 125,000 people were living in such assisted facilities, and they needed to be provided some meals. So government started kitchen program, which they call it kitchen service. In that service, they started providing the sponsored meals to those senior citizens, which was a great initiative. But over a period of time, they realized that in spite of that initiative, close to 60% of those senior citizens were still having poor nutrition. And within that, a large number, almost 20%, were actually malnourished. And that was a big challenge that they started thinking about solving. So they solved the problem of giving the meals, but it was still not serving the purpose of nutrition within this senior citizen community. Now, what they did was they thought about the problem, and then they consulted certain external uh, consultancy organization, Hatch and Bloom in this case. And an obvious problem statement that they gave to the consultancy firm was, go and fix the menu, because that seems to be the problem. And if you fix the menu, that will fix the nutrition problem. Now, fortunately, the consultancy firm decided to broaden the scope of this problem, and they started looking at what is the root cause of this issue before we even fix the problem. Now, Hatch and Bloom, when they started looking at the root of the problem, they used a tool called journey mapping. And journey mapping is a tool to basically trace the journey of a customer as they experience a product or a service. Now you can say that we do that all the time when we are designing, let's say, our within our testing, we designing functional scenarios. We look at the complete flow of how the product works and at what stage how the user is interacting. But journey mapping is slightly different, uh, and it takes us a step further. So when we design workflows and flowcharts to understand how the product works for an end customer, the focus is mostly on the functional need of the product or functional uses of the product. Now, what a journey mapping does is it also looks at the emotional need of the consumer, and that's where you really understand the unarticulated needs of any consumer. If you go and ask a customer what the customer wants, what they say will be very different than what you will perceive if you understand the emotions behind the customer experience the product or the service. And that's what they did. And to do this exercise, they actually started looking at from the very beginning. They went to the kitchens where the food was getting prepared. They looked at how the food was prepared. Then they went into the delivery vans. uh, when they were delivering the food, they sat with the senior citizens and they observed how they are opening the packets, how they are setting the tables, how they're consuming it. uh, and once they saw this complete journey, they realized something very, very interesting, which was not the problem statement given earlier that you fix the menu. What they realized that in Denmark society, the seniors were really embarrassed to accept government assistance at the first place, though it was a need, but they were very embarrassed to get the government assistance. The second problem that they identified was loss of control over food choices. So every day, the menu was almost fixed for weekly or monthly basis. So there was no motivation for the senior citizens to even look at what's coming their way, and it was very painful for them. They were also very alone when they were eating. There was no interaction with them from anyone, so there was no motivation for them to really consume the food in a positive way. And at the kitchen side, the workers also are very unmotivated and bored to prepare the same meals every day. Now, look at the problem statement that was given and what they experienced once they did this exercise through this journey mapping. Now, same journey mapping a tool can be used to really understand any product or service experience through consumers. Now, once they understood that, uh, then they were able to come up with a better uh, version of the product, which they call it good kitchen. And it's a very famous case study. You can go and search on internet and you'll find it. Now, some few changes that they did: instead of calling that a kitchen service, they remodeled it like a restaurant, from which the senior citizens could order the food, pre-order the food. uh, the cooks were termed as chefs, so they were more happy about that. They can think about the meals that they can prepare on their own. They can do some experimentations and all. The vehicles were remodeled like waiters, so give the senior citizens an experience of the restaurant, that someone is there when they are unpacking the food or they are consuming the food, etc. The plain description was changed in form of menu. So for example, you can always say that today there will be a idli. Instead, the whole description could be with it's like a pancake with these ingredients, completely mentioned in much more detail. So so imagine the experience the consumer can have. One more small change that they did was to have postcards which the senior citizens can send back to the chefs based on their experiences. So they created a connection between the senior citizens and the chefs, which motivated both of them. Now, with this change, they could see almost 500% increase in the meal orders in the first week alone. And over a period of time, they saw a lot of other benefits in terms of improving the nutrition and all. Now, this was a classic case of understanding the customer experience, not just from the functional perspective, but also from the hidden emotional need perspective. So, functional need was just to deliver the food, and it was happening in a perfect way, but it was not serving the emotional need, and thus deteriorating the consumer experience, and ultimately the uh, product was not being used, or it was serving the purpose for which it was designed. Now let's look at another story which is more the tech oriented. This is a story of Pizza Hut. I'm sure we all would feel hungry looking at this picture. Uh, but what was happening was in 2015, Domino's was behind the competition, which was Pizza Hut, and Pizza Hut has been a leading brand uh, till 2017. So in 2015, Domino's started looking at revamping the complete consumer experience for their customers while they are ordering the pizza. And that uh, analysis led to rise of a platform called Domino's Anywhere. Now, the main philosophy behind Domino's Anywhere was to give the ordering experience of the pizza without disturbing the experience any consumer is having in that moment. Now, what does that mean? For example, let's say you are on Facebook Messenger chatting with your friend and you feel like ordering a pizza. Can you do that from that interface itself rather than switching, going to a app or a web application? You can just quickly send a text message from the same interface and order a pizza. That was experience that they thought for the customer. Similarly, they went for something like a zero click. You just have a button on your phone, and you just click, wait for 30 seconds or 1 minute, your pizza will be ordered automatically. You're on smartwatch, probably doing jogging, you can order it then and there. You are in car, you can order your pizza through the audio interface. And then they created many other interfaces for their customers not to switch from what they are already doing. um, Kitchen button, Alexa. They created a Slack application as well for working professionals, because most of the organizations are using something like Slack. So while you're working, you can order the pizza directly from Slack. um, Text emojis. Just imagine the experience you have when you're ordering and you just need to send a text emoji. That's it, and your pizza is ordered. Now, with this change in their overall strategy, and when they revamped themselves like a tech platform, they realized that almost 60% of their sale came from through the digital orders. And in 2018, Domino's finally surpassed Pizza Hut as the number one pizza chain. And you look at this transformation. In this transformation, what was the forefront of this transformation? It was to improve the consumer experience in a way that their customers can really understand the change and start consuming the service more than their competition. So this was a clear case of consumer experience led transformation, and the tech was behind this transformation to enable this. Now, if we try to kind of sum it in terms of definition, based on what we just saw through two different stories, one was completely non-tech and the second was from the tech side of it. Consumer experience is like a holistic perception of a business or a brand based on their experience and interaction, right? So I would term it slightly differently from what I have experienced, and I think you would be able to relate to the two stories that we discussed. Consumer experience is combination of functional and unarticulated hidden emotional needs. So until unless you experience or understand both, you will not be able to design a right consumer experience for your customers. Uh, and that's very, very important from the testing community perspective to really understand. We have been very, very focused on the functional, non-functional, and technical aspect of the product or the service, but I think we need to go beyond and start looking at how really my consumer experiences the product and service, and what are those hidden challenges or hidden emotional needs the customers might have, which can improve the experience. That thought process we need to bring in the testing world as well. And to do that, probably you can go and learn a little bit of design thinking and some of the other areas that will give you those kind of perspectives. I talked about some tools like journey mapping. You can go and read about that in independently if you want to implement these uh, thinking. Now, talking a little bit more about unique aspects from the testing perspective. So we talked about you talked about the journey mapping exercise, but before that, before you do journey mapping, some of the important aspects like empathy map, user personas become very, very important. So we talk about the flowchart creation, right? In our traditional way, we only look at users, and we say that our users are probably, let's say, a student, right? That could be my user for my product, or a tech professional. That is what is a definition of user in our current traditional scenario. But if you look at, if you have to design your customer experience testing strategy, you need to go beyond. You need to think of the user persona, and within persona you really need to know, okay, how a particular user uh, is thinking, right? What is his motivation? What is his personality? What are the goals that the user is looking at? What are the type of brands that the user is already aware? So until we understand that level of detail, we'll not be able to design any consumer experience testing strategy at all. And to do that, there are tools like user personas, empathy maps. I'm not going into that detail. We don't have that much time, but I'm just giving you those terms. If you can go and probably find out more about these things and start looking at those in much more detail. Other tools like journey mapping, we have been talking about in the story itself. A great example of journey mapping exercise from the Starbucks experience. So you look at how they have created it uh, in terms of the touch points. So first, they looked at the various touch points that they want to analyze, and their touch point starts from a person leaving from office, going to the car, walking in, then within the store, how they get into line, order, pay, and then how do they exit, and after that, how what do they feel. So until unless we understand those touch points, we'll not be able to design the testing scenarios, or what are the questions that we need to ask from the end consumer so that we understand the behavior. So when we look at a tool like journey mapping, it gives us the ability to design these test scenarios, or the journey mapping, the journey maps in a much more deeper way. So apart from these tools that we talked about, what are the different testing methods that we can apply? Uh, so there are various kind of methods that we can take. Uh, Things like omni-channel customer journey testing, moderated unmoderated consumer experience testing like Gorilla, eye tracking. Some of it you might be already doing. Real life condition testing through Crowd. There are now tools, AI-based tools, which can do sentiment analysis. So if you already have a large consumer base, you can use AI tools to do sentiment analysis. And the key aspect is to shift from silo testing to multi-experience testing. That's one of the key, because as we experienced, uh, as we discussed, multi-experience is what matters. Okay, I think since we are nearing the end of it, I'll try to keep it short, the rest of the slides. So what we are also seeing as a trend is, since we are looking at creating multi-interface applications, uh, the platforms which enables that are become very, very popular. So what in our tech term we call it multi-experience development platform. So when you are designing anything, you have to think of all the different interfaces that the customer will be using it from. It could be touch, chat, gestures, voice. So one feature has to be developed across the different interfaces, and mxdp platforms gives you those kind of ability to do that. And similarly, you need to look at the supporting testing infrastructure, which can help you enable customer experience transformation testing from the testing side as well. And at Pcloudy, we have been doing it in that way. So for example, we have given you a complete infrastructure layer. On top of it, all the solutions which can help you test faster in a multi-experience way. So you can do your touch testing, gestures, voice. Of course, there are certain part of consumer experience testing that you'll have to do it in a much more uh, manual way by doing surveys, etc. But a lot of testing can happen through the infrastructure like Pcloudy. So you need to be ready with supporting testing infrastructure as well. And lastly, I would come back to the same quote that I started with, uh, Steve Jobs. Now you can also understand the quote that he gave later, that customers don't know what they want until you show it to them. What he really meant was that the the emotional need of the customer is never very, very clear. Even if you go and ask the customer, they will not be able to articulate their emotional needs until unless you really observe and understand, and then design your product and service accordingly. So with that thought, I will end my presentation. Thank you so much for listening patiently. If there is any questions, I'll be happy to take up.
Yes, there are two questions for you, Avinash, very specifically for the Pcloudy platform that they were asking. First question is, what are the prerequisites for an organization to get started with the Pcloudy platform? And what kind of enterprises applications would be supported through the Pcloudy platform? That's their main question.
Yeah. So, I mean, at Pcloudy, you can get started uh, at any stage of your development that you are in. And one of the key elements that you need to really think about is having a right infrastructure uh, in place in the beginning itself. And as part of the Pcloudy journey, we also help customers move from stage 1 to stage 3, which we call stage 1 as beginning, where infrastructure like mobile and browser lab is used for testing by developers or testers in a much more discrete way. And stage 3 is in more continuous way, where you have automated scripts running at scale. So at any stage that you are in, you can start using Pcloudy. We recommend using it as early as possible, and we help customers move from stage 1 to stage 3 and become a company which can use continuous testing very, very effectively. And in terms of enterprise application, as I showed in the slide, you can use your app, web in a much more integrated way. We also have come up with certain testing around variables. So all these can be done in an integrated way on a platform like Pcloudy.
Perfect, perfect. And also, just for the purpose of the audience, Pcloudy is also exhibiting in the expo area. They have also conducted a detailed demo session yesterday, in the afternoon. There is a rerun and a record of the whole demonstration for all of you who are keen to see it. Please do visit the booth. We also have Suraj from the Pcloudy team within the audience who will also be there to interact and discuss. So I'm sure there are multiple ways in which you can interact with Pcloudy even post the conference, to know more and more technical details. But I think, Avinash, that's a fantastic, exposure to us, in terms of understanding how testing needs to realign for making the customer experience much better. And I think there is a strong wisdom in what what you said, and also what Steve Jobs, has, kind of summarized it with. It reminds me of an old quote, right? Like, when I was growing up in the quality world, they used to quote the Ford's quotation, where they said, like, if people went and asked for what they would need before there was a car, they would have simply said faster horses. So how would someone design a car? So he always said that it's the responsibility of us as an industrial company, to create, something that would make convenience and an ability for them to do more. And that's what you need to start with and then present the idea. So it's great. I think finally someone who talks about customers, not just internal systems, that's a different perspective for us in the conference. Really appreciate taking time, Avinash, and really supporting us through all the event as well. And great, great to have you here. Please do, attend the rest of the conference. Look forward to interacting. Unfortunately, we can't give any more gifts right now. Otherwise, virtually, it would be nice to do a small photo picture and everything. But yeah, that's things which I miss.
I still have those last year gifts, beautiful ones.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, lovely. I hope they've grown up to be a good plants, and then they're continuing to grow. Okay, our bit to the planet, right? That's the idea.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for listening patiently. Hope you would have enjoyed the journey, and yeah, let's hope we meet next year and interact more interactively, face to face.
Yeah. Probably we all should take the vaccine early and then travel to all the other locations because we get the discounts now, right? That's what I was telling my friends. The best thing now is just take the vaccine and then go to all the exotic locations at the lowest price possible.
Before next pandemic hits,
yeah, before the next pandemic or before the vaccine runs out, we don't know. So
great.
Anyways.
And I'll be happy to answer any more questions that comes along. You can reach me directly on my LinkedIn or on my email ID. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah. We are also going to post these questions on the LinkedIn group, Avinash. So I will coordinate with Suraj and Mallikarjun to ensure that the discussion continues on what we have started here today. Okay.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that's the end of the segment 1 for day 2. What we would do now is, we would take a 10-minute break. The time in my clock is currently 10:50 a.m. India time. We would take a 10-minute break. I'm sure you're missing your tea, coffee, biscuits, but then I'm sure you're also equipped to have it at your own level, your own perfect chai and coffee. And please do grab them, visit the booths, interact with the sponsors, network with your friends, who are out there. And there are almost like 393 people, in the networking area. So please go ahead, meet people from the industry. And we will see you back in different tracks. So when we come back from the break, we will be in different tracks. As always, I'll be posting the messages as and when the tracks become live. We will be starting it by 11:05 India time. All the best, and look forward to seeing you in the seminar halls and individual tracks. Thank you.